So I've actually already done a review on the 35mm 1.2 Sigma. You can check that out. I took it to an engagement shoot and took a whole bunch of photos with it, uploaded some raw files. I've also done a video comparing all the 35mm prime lenses for Sony that I could get my hands on. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description below. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about it again, especially versus the 35mm 1.8, the tiny little Sony one. I've taken both to a wedding. I had a big multi-day Indian wedding over the weekend. I've shot a few photos around home, and I took the 35mm 1.2 with me and used it in those situations. Really low light situations, all sorts of different areas where lenses get tested to their limit. I was actually really surprised with how the Sigma performed. Mostly I was surprised because every other Sigma lens I've used in the past for Sony cameras has been a little bit problematic when it comes to focus, whether they're adapted or the non-adapted Sony lenses that have brought out in the past. But this 35mm 1.2 definitely performed much better, and honestly I can say when paired with the Sony camera it pretty much performs as a native lens would. I didn't find any issues with hunting or anything like that. It focused really well in low light. I did miss a shot here or there at 1.2, but mostly everything was in focus and it performed, like I said, just as well as the 35mm 1.8 would. I did find for video focus they were both pretty much on par. They both focused really well continuously. No noise really that could be picked up on the microphone on the internal recording. So in terms of video, they're both really great. That flickering issue seems to have been fixed with firmware. Some people were finding, and I found it with my first review, the 35mm 1.2 was flickering when you were doing video at 1.2. I don't find that anymore, so that's great to see that's gone. I did find when manually focusing, the 35mm 1.2 Sigma was definitely easier to manual focus when you're doing video, so if that's something you do a lot, that maybe is something to take into consideration. Like I just said, all of those images were shot wide open, but they were shot at 1.8. Because I was using the 35mm 1.8, I'm going to show you guys some images from a 35mm 1.2 now, so don't get upset about it, but the reason I showed those first and didn't really say what lens they were from was because personally in a real world situation after I've edited these images, and especially when you're not using them side by side, which you're not going to do, I don't think you can tell the difference. And yes, the 35mm 1.2 is a better lens optically. It's definitely sharper, it definitely has less chromatic aberration, and it does have a little bit more background separation, which can look really pleasing depending on the situation you're using it. You're not always going to see it, but if you're the ideal distance from your subject, you are going to see the difference between 1.2 and 1.8 quite clearly. Is it worth the price difference and the weight difference of carrying it around? So using it over a few hours, I did notice that the 35mm 1.2 was really front heavy. So because the Sony cameras are quite small, it'd probably feel better on an A7R IV or something like that, but you know, with the grip on the Sony cameras, I'm using the A7RIIIs, it did feel really front heavy. Now, if I was doing a portrait session or a studio shoot, I really don't think that's going to be a problem. And honestly, it's not a problem shooting a wedding with it, but when you compare it to what I've been using over the past while, which is probably 90% the 24mm G Master, it's so much smaller and so much lighter that I've just kind of gotten used to that, and it's a really nice thing to have. So I don't really want to give that up. And honestly, 35mm is not something I'm using all the time anyway. I'm going to upload some of these raw files so you can compare them from yourself and just make your own decisions. But the whole reason for this video was I just wanted to share my final thoughts with you guys on the 35mm 1.2. And honestly, it's definitely the best 35mm you can get. It's the sharpest, it has the least aberration, it has the most background separation, and it optically is just the best. You can't really argue with it. So that's it guys, thanks for watching. I hope you download the raw files and have a play for yourself. Really appreciate all the positivity that I'm getting in the comment section. I'll see you in the next video.